Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of Things I've Learned from Barry Harris. Today I thought we would discuss Barry's half-step rules for the major scale. In a previous episode I discussed the half-step rules for the dominant scale, and I got a lot of questions about, well, does he have one for major? And he does. In the same as the dominant scale, you're going to think, now again these are descending, starting on a particular degree of the scale. And the ones that you have to keep in mind that stay together are starting from the root, starting from the third, starting from the fifth, and starting from the seventh. Those all get the same rules. Also, starting from the second, starting from the fourth, and starting from the sixth, those all get the same rules. So we'll discuss what each rule is. Let's start on the tonic, and maybe let's choose the key of we'll do the key of C. So we'll start on the tonic, and the first rule for starting on a tonic is we're going to come down and we're going to put 1/2 step in between 6 and 5. So let's try that. So between the 6th and the 5th of C major. So let's try that. That's 1/2 step in between 6 and 5. Let's try starting from second. The rule for 2 is going to be no half steps first. That's the first rule. Okay, the second rule is going to be 2 half steps between second and tonic and 6 and 5. And then we'll start from the third, and the third is going to get the same rule as the tonic. First we'll put 1/2 step in between 6 and 5. Now we'll do 3 half steps, and the 3 half steps are going to be between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, and 6 and 5. So 2 is going to have 2 half steps, which is no half steps and 2 half steps. Here's no half steps. Here's the 2 half steps. And 3 is going to have 2 rules also. First 1/2 step, and then 3 half steps. Now we'll start on the 4, and 4, like 2, is going to get no half steps first. Again, no half steps. Now it's going to get 2 half steps, and the 2 half steps are going to be in the same place that they were for the second, which is going to be between 2 and 1 and 6 and 5. So now we'll start on the 4, 2 half steps between 2 and 1 and 6 and 5. Or just to the third if we want. Now we'll use the 5. So the 5 is going to get the same rules for the tonic and for the third. And the first rule is going to be 1/2 step between 6 and 5. And I guess we'll end on the 5. We can go down the third too. And then we're going to get 3 half steps between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, and 6 and 5, which is exactly the same as the rule for the tonic and the rule for the third. So let's try that. Starting on the 5, descending between the third and the second, second and tonic, 6 and 5. Let's start on the 6. 6 is going to get the same half steps as the second and the fourth, which the first one is going to be no half steps. We'll end on the 5. Maybe we'll go down to 3. Now we'll do 2 half steps between the second and the tonic, and the 6 and the 5. That's a nice one. Now we'll start on the 7th, and we'll do 1/2 step between 6 and 5. Now we'll start on the 7th again, and we'll do 3 half steps, which was the same for the root, the third, and the 5th, and now the 7th, which is going to be between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, and 6 and 5. So let's try that one. Let me try it again. Again. That's 3 half steps. So now you got all your rules for the half steps. So 1, 3, 5, and 7 are the same rules, either 1/2 step between 6 and 5, or 3 half steps between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, and 6 and 5. And then the 2 and the 4 and the 6 are also connected. And those rules are either no half steps or 2 half steps. between second and tonic and 6 and 5. Now, in the same way that the rules for the dominant scale change a little bit when you do certain things, same thing for the major scale. So let's just say, for instance, we're going to start, one of the rules for the half steps is if we start on a note and run up to any other note and then run back down, you're going to use the rule for the note you started on. So let's say I start on tonic, and let's say I run up to second. I'm still going to use the rule for the tonic, so it would be 1/2 step between 6 and 5. Which is a nice phrase. Let's say I start on the tonic and run up to the third. I'll still use the rule for the tonic, which is 1/2 step between 6 and 5. Or in that instance, since I'm already up to the third, I could probably put 3/2 steps in. Between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, 6 and 5. Let's see. Let's do 1/2 step first. Sounds good. Now let's do 3/2 steps. Nice one too. Nice one. Now let's do tonic running up to the fourth. That was still with 1/2 step. Now let's do tonic running up to the fourth, 2/2 steps between, 3/2 steps between 3 and 2, 2 and 1, 6 and 5. Well, I changed it a little bit at the end there, but you get the idea. So 3/2 steps. Which is pretty. Then I just added something at the end of it, but... So you see, that's one of the rules, starting on a note and running up to another note. You could do that for each degree. And just get those in your fingers because it really helps you. Let's start on the third. Let's start on the third and do 1/2 step, but I'm going to run from the third to the fourth. Which is a nice phrase. Or how about starting on the third, running up to the fourth, and then playing 3/2 steps. Which is really nice. Let's see. Really nice phrase. But anyway, these are all ways to get yourself out of trouble rhythmically about landing on correct notes, not so correct notes. Now, the other thing I wanted to discuss, and maybe we'll discuss it further in another episode, is this idea of target notes and things like that. I get it, and it is true for the half steps. You do want to fall on certain notes and certain beats. But that does not mean that we can't start a phrase on a note that's not in the scale or not a target note. So, like for instance, Barry used to do this exercise where he would say, call out a note. You know, we would be playing, we'll keep it in C, but let's just say anything, playing a blues in C. And they'll say, call out any note. And people would call out a number, you know, like a root, a third, a fifth. And then people started to, instead of call out notes in the scale, they started to call out notes out of the scale. So he would say, call out any of the 12 tones. And I'll take that phrase and I'll start a phrase with it, using that note. And the reason that he did that, I think, was to show us that all 12 notes can be equally important. Barry's whole thing is you just have to make something out of it, something hip out of it, or something pretty out of it. So these rules are not necessarily, the reason why I'm going through that discussion is because these rules are really meant to help you to get a good foundation. But again, it's not the only thing that you're going to be using as an improviser, or it's not the only thing, it's not the only strict way that you're going to go about it. But once you get them in your fingers, it's very helpful, and you have a really fantastic foundation to work from. But, you know, so just in the key of C, let's say we're playing a blues. Sometimes Barry would say, well, what if we start on a G sharp? You know, or he would say, we would say, start on G sharp, Barry, and he would come up with you know, idea of you could start on any note and you make something of it, you know, whatever you choose to make of it. But you have to figure out different ways. Another way that he used to talk about it is, if you start on a note, that note, you might want to imply a different chord than is actually being played there. So a substitute chord, or maybe you want to be ahead of the beat or whatever. So even that same fifth, or that same sharp 5, you might want to do something different. Like, for instance, in a blues in C, the first chord is C7, but we know that you can also play C7's tritone because it's going home to F. So C7's tritone is F sharp. So that G sharp is the second of F sharp. So you could say, so all I did was come down a chord from the second of F sharp. So again, because I saw a lot of discussion about it, and I just wanted to make it clear, I didn't want to imply that these are the only notes that you can play or not play, or you have to fall on a certain beat or not on a certain beat. But the idea is, it's a good foundation to become rhythmically sound, but then at the same time, you want to be able to work yourself out of any sort of trouble you get yourself into as an improviser. So that means any note at any time, you should try to be able to make something out of it. And one of the most wonderful classes that I remember attending was, he went on like that. I mean, Barry went on and on like that for like 20 minutes. I think he was playing the bridge or Cherokee or something like that. So, and we would just call out a note, and he'd start, and sometimes he would start at the bottom of the piano and go all the way to the top, or start at the top of the piano and come all the way down. I mean, just incredible. But obviously that's the highest level of what it is that I'm getting across to you. But it's a good place to shoot for. I mean, I'm still shooting for it myself. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode about the half steps for the major scale. So now we have dominant scale, the major scale. And I have to talk a little bit more about playing, maybe in some of the upcoming episodes, about minor. There's a lot of questions about minor, so we'll do that. But anyway, enjoy practicing your major scale half steps. Until next time, thanks.